Hi, my name is Jay Newton-Small, and I'm CEO and founder of MemoryWell. We're a digital platform for senior storytelling. So MemoryWell really began with my dad. My dad had Alzheimer's, and he was diagnosed when I was still a senior in college, and I became his primary caregiver for the last 5 years of his life. And a few years ago, I had to move him into a community. And when I did, they asked me to fill out this 20-page questionnaire. And I was sitting there writing down these answers thinking, these are really hard questions. I was a professional writer with Time magazine, and I challenge anybody to define their parents' 40-year marriage in 4 lines. And then B, who's ever gonna read and remember 20 pages of handwritten data points for their 150 residents there, right? So I instead didn't fill out the form, turned it in blank, and said, look, I'm a writer, and I think it's easier for me and easier for you if you just let me write down his story. And they were like, okay, you're weird, but sure. So I wrote down his story, and they absolutely loved it. 2 of his caregivers were Ethiopian, and they'd had no idea that my dad had actually lived in Ethiopia for 4 years early on in his career with the United Nations. And they became his champions. They would sit for hours and show him their own personal family photos of Addis Ababa and Lalibela. And Dad loved it because he remembered his Africa from his early 20s, even if he didn't remember last week. It built empathy. So, MemoryWell really grew from there. We now have a network of more than 500 writers across the country, and we work with assisted living facilities and home health care agencies and continuing care retirement communities to replace those questionnaires that nobody likes to read and nobody loves to fill out with beautifully written stories. We also have a digital platform where then families can build on those stories and add in their loved ones' favorite music and movies and arts and readings, and that way whomever's sitting with them, whether it's a paid caregiver or a grandchild, has a whole toolbox of things with which to engage them. And this is really important because right now there's billions and billions of dollars that goes to Alzheimer's research, which is great. It's absolutely important. We need a cure. But there's also a huge problem with caregiving in the country right now. The research that we're doing, let's face it, given recent drug trial failures, is probably not going to lead to a cure or a treatment in time to save the baby boomer generation. And we are already short right now more than 1.5 million caregivers in the United States, which leads to shortfalls in the workforce. So communities like my father's experience more than 55% turnover annually of staff. And that leads to really disjointed care, it leads to isolation, and it leads to a lot of problems. So, this is actually getting worse and worse. By the year 2020, we're going to be short more than 2 million caregivers, and by the year 2030, we're going to be short more than 10 million caregivers, which means that just as the baby boomer generation is the last of them are turning 70, and the need for care will be most acute, the shortage will be the greatest, and therefore the quality of care will be declining. Now, there are plenty of people here at MIT, I am sure, who are building robots to solve this problem. And that is wonderful. In Japan, they've done that, and it's amazing. But it doesn't actually solve the problem of isolation and the problem of connection, which is a large reason why MemoryWell was chosen as one of the recipients of the Arts and Culture Prize here for MIT Solved by Yo-Yo Ma, which is really awesome. But that's because we build connection, and that's really important too. It's important that people, as they age, feel connected, are not isolated, and can build bonds and lead quality lives. So we are MemoryWell, and we're changing aging one story at a time. Thank you so much.